Eric, did you move to San Francisco? I can't hear you. Well, your audio is still not working. Okay, that looks like you should be able to speak. No. All right. Anyway, like the view, I used to, in my first office in San Francisco in 1976 was in Embarcadero 1, looking north over Sonoma and Napa counties. I didn't know anything about Sonoma and Napa counties at the time, but it was a pretty view. Hey there, Heather. How'd your training go?
Good. Much smoother than Sonoma.
Okay, good.
In the greenhouse, so.
Okay, good. Good morning, Amy. Without naming you, I'm going to use your recent experience as a lesson today. So I hope that's okay. But now that I've named you, everyone knows it's you anyway.
Let's do it. I am so happy this morning. I can't even tell you.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start with another one, actually. Both of these, Amy's thing and the other one we're working on this week have to do with cancellations. And, you know, one's a canceling for a buyer and one's canceling for a listing that we have. And, you know, both circumstances kind of revolve around the issue of, you know, life is too short for certain things, you know, and particularly on the listing side, you know, you get into a listing with someone you realize is maybe a little quirky or yeah, demanding or whatever, but when they become abusive or inconsistent in their kind of patterns, it kind of goes from quirky to crazy, and it's stressful. So sometimes I have a saying that I've used for, you know, since I was in my early 20s in the mortgage business, and it's a short no is better than a long yes. Okay, so you know, we might be able to eventually massage a transaction out of that listing, but this toll is going to be too much. You know, it's not going to be worth it, and it'd be better to give her a short no, her in this case the seller, and rather than try to massage it into a long yes. So let me start with the cancellation of listing form here. Can you see that? Somebody say, give me a thumbs up. Okay. So we need to sign this, you know, so in this case, I was using a form that had two listing companies. We're just going to use VHGRE Wine Country Group. And we're going to cancel. And it says we entered into a listing agreement dated, and we're going to put the date. It was about a month ago. And then we're going to have Sally Seller. And property info, and then we're going to have some boxes to check here. So broker and principal agree to cancel the listing and terminate their agency relationship duties and responsibilities with each other, subject to the terms and conditions specified below. Check A or B or both. Principal agrees to pay broker the amount of compensation specified in the listing if X, A, if prior to the end of the listing period specified in the listing or any extension, principal enters into a contract to sell, convey, or lease or otherwise transfer the property. In this case, we're gonna let her hire another agent and she can sell the property. That's fine with us. So we don't expect, this listing goes on for 6 months, but we don't, we aren't gonna hold her to compensation if she sells in the next 6 months. So we won't check A. But B is if within 60 calendar days, and this has to tie back to whatever was in the contract about protection periods for people who have seen the property. After the cancellation of this listing or listing period specified, blah, 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 the property is sold to Sally Susan. All right, we're going to call her Sally Buyer. Actually, we got Sally Seller, we got Sally Buyer. Anyway, so we're going to name one party here actually who has shown interest in the property and hasn't quite pulled the trigger on an offer, but may. And they do. And actually, we heard about this client after the fact, after we signed up the listing, that in one experience some time ago, she sold a property, or she listed a property, canceled the listing, went behind the listing agent's back and contacted the interested party and sold it directly, so just cutting the agent out. So this will protect us at least for 60 days if Sally Buyer comes back and writes an offer, an acceptable offer. And then there's some other things that this says if they enter into a listing agreement with another broker, they would pay us. We aren't going to check that. Principal agrees to notify the real estate broker to compensate obligation, but we aren't going to commit her to any compensation other than that one party. Sometimes, we've spent money on marketing. We want $1,000 for our out of pockets. We could put that in there, but again, we aren't planning to on this time. If we're just going to walk away to deal with no protected parties or anything, we would check this box. Principal is no compensation by broker. And then there's a mutual release and so forth, and both parties sign. Okay, so that's the form. Any questions on the form? The interesting thing is the notion of us canceling the listing came up about a week ago, and the agent suggested to the seller that maybe we should just cancel the listing. And at that time, the seller said, "No, I don't want to cancel the listing. I want you to sell the property." So, but she had made it virtually impossible for us to do a proper job of marketing the property by raising the price in the middle of the listing period and things like that. So I actually did check with Vicky, and based on if the seller were not agreeing to cancel the listing, could we unilaterally do so? And Vicky's answer was yes. If the circumstances are such, and we have a file full of things that the seller did to obstruct the sale, we can unilaterally cancel the contract.
Well,
Yeah, question? Okay.
Hey, Gary,
All right.
I had a question.
Okay. We went silent again on us, Eric.
I did not read the small print, but it appears that under the 60-day extension clause, we'd be due a commission. But then at the bottom, it says we're not asking for a commission because you didn't check that box. Would not the seller go, "Hey, you said I don't know your commission for canceling"?
Well, no, if we check this box, number 4 here, principal owes no compensation to broker, then we would just be walking away. But we aren't going to check that box.
Good. I wouldn't check it either.
Okay, yeah, no, we're going to.
I would check number
We're gonna-
3.
3. What is number 3?
Know me for my marketing
Out of
expenses.
pockets, yeah. Well, we don't want to get into just aggravation. It'll just cause more stress. So that's what we don't need. Now, in another circumstance, agent to remain unnamed. We're kind of in what had been a difficult transaction kind of all along. Seller happens to be a broker himself, represented by his son. He'd done a flip, but it's sloppy, with no permits and things like that. Things brokers should know better than to do. But anyway, they kind of pushed through to RR, and then a request for repairs from the buyer, and they got back a seller's response, the famous RRRR form. Seller response by request for, okay.
Yeah.
And let me go back. I could full screen this. Okay. So here's the RRRR form, the seller's response and buyer reply to the request for repair. So this is a seller's response, and the seller kind of did some things here, and agreed to reduce the price, and I did a couple other things here that were different from what the buyer wanted in the RR. But the buyer kind of was agreeable to what the seller offered with the following modification. So then there was one amendment to contract attached, or something along these lines, attached to be part of the transaction or something like that. So there was going to be an amendment that had additional details that were too long to type in here. So they were typed into an amendment to the contract, and it did be part of the transaction. So this is a modification of what the seller offered, right? And then the buyer, along with this, provided the CR form, because if the seller agreed to this amendment, everything was going to be done, and transaction could move forward. Well, the amendment. Let's look at the amendment form.
The amendment was amended.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the amendment of existing agreement. Remember, you use an addendum when you're first writing an offer, but you use an amendment of existing terms when you're modifying an agreement that's already ratified. So, typical, stuff at the front here, identify the parties and the people. And then our very capable agent, had very nice, stuff in here and it was attached to the RR, the buyer's response to the RRRR. And from there, the seller submitted a modified amendment. They wrote up their own amendment that had different terms from the one that our buyer signed. So, and those terms were not satisfactory to our buyer. So at this point, we've given them a CR, which is the removal of conditions. We've given them a kind of an approved RRRR subject to this amendment, and now we want to cancel. So question really comes down, do we still have the right to cancel, and how do we do that? So for being cautious, we wanted to first revoke the approved buyer's response to the RRRR. We wanted to revoke the CR, the contingency removal form, and revoke the amendment form that we had offered up to the buyer or the seller. We wanted to revoke those three things and cancel under the cancellation rights that the buyer maintained under the contract. Hold on just a second, and I'll get to you. So in revoking any form, if you want to revoke an offer you've written, you want to revoke a counter offer you've written, you want to revoke a contingency removal that you've written and hasn't been accepted by the seller yet. You can do that just through an email from the agent to the other agent. Just say the buyer hereby revokes the counter offer that they submitted blank, 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 and identify it properly. So that doesn't have a separate form. You can't go searching through ZipForms and find a form for revoking something like that. You just do it through a normal email, and that revokes that document, and it's no longer valid. Now, the cancellation of contract, on the buyer's side, we use the cancellation form, and that was filled out properly. And luckily, the outcome is that the seller accepted cancellation and signed it, and the deal was off. You wanted to add something there, Amy?
I just wanted to add that in addition to sending over the cancellation and itemizing what we were withdrawing, I also had them sign the rejection of their seller's amendment.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Good. Good. Yeah, we just wanted, in case the seller got ornery and said, "No, I'm not going to let you cancel," you know, we wanted to back away to a point where we were clear that buyers still had the right to cancel. Okay, so if you get into that circumstance, and again, the buyer just we were trying to serve our buyers best, as professionally and as best we could. And if they wanted to proceed under all these circumstances, that's what was going to happen, but they didn't. And so again, sometimes backing away from a problem before it gets bad is better than trying to push through it. You'll find them another house, Amy.
Oh yeah, I know.
Okay. Let's see, we got a request. So the buyer, we're representing buyer buying the property, and the seller, there's a SIP, the seller in possession. The seller's going to, stay in the home for 15 days after the closing. And the question is, should the buyers do their walkthrough provided for in the contract prior to closing, or wait until the seller in possession, is ready to leave? Anyone want to venture an answer? Yeah, Amy.
Well, doesn't the contract states that we should do our final walkthrough within 5 days of closing?
Right. So that's the answer. Yeah, we still want to do the walkthrough, even though the seller's going to stay in possession and all the seller's possessions will be in the property. But remember, the walkthrough is only to verify the condition of the property, that it's the same as it was when the buyer went into contract. So, I mean, when they went into contract, all the seller's stuff was in there. So that's how they saw the property. Now, they also need to inspect the property when the seller vacates, because sometimes, behind that chest of drawers or under that table, and there's how many times have we heard that under the table there's a stain on the hardwood floor? This happens kind of more than you want to know. Or behind all those boxes in the garage, there's mold, the M word. So sometimes things show up after party moves out, and then you have to deal with that, as something that after close of escrow. Yeah, Heather.
I have a question about that walkthrough.
Yeah.
I have someone buying a mobile home, and they've released all their contingencies. But the park is requiring the seller to do some repairs that are going to be finished right before close. So I've never had that experience. So I'm assuming at the walkthrough, I'm just going to be because it's not going to be in the same condition as when they put in the offer. Hopefully
Right.
It's going to be better unless they do a really bad job, but I don't know. Any suggestions on that?
Let's see, let's look. I think the buyer's walkthrough form has something about that. Is it the buyer walkthrough? What was it called?
VP, verification of property.
Verification. Okay, thank you. Verification of property use. There we go. The purpose of this inspection is satisfied buyer can regarding the condition of the property, but understand and agree that unless otherwise agreed prior to contract agreement, buyer so a final inspection is not a contingency, blah, blah, blah. The inspection or waiver is not intended in any way to alter the contractual positions. The inspection waiver is not based upon any statement or representation by brokers, blah, blah, blah. The understanding agreed to hold brokers is harmless from liability claims. Blah, blah. Buyer acknowledges that the property is in substantially the same condition as the date of the offer, and the seller has completed any repairs. Here we are. Seller has completed any repairs, alteration as agreed to by buyer and seller with the following exceptions. So is the repair going to take place before or after your walkthrough? Heather? Where are you, Heather?
Oh,
You're
sorry,
muted, Heather.
I forgot I was muted. It's gonna be before, so it'll be completed this weekend. We'll probably do our walkthrough on Monday.
Okay, all right, so then this number 2 here would apply that the seller has completed any repairs as agreed to by the buyer and seller. And even though it wasn't the buyer and seller that agreed to the repairs, it was something required by the park. This would still be the applicable clause. So you wouldn't put anything in here unless you find exceptions.
Okay, maybe if they do a really bad job on one of the
Yeah,
repairs.
yeah.
That's my
Yeah,
only.
yeah, that would be an exception. Mhm,
Yeah,
sure.
okay, thanks.
Gary?
Yeah, Amy's had her hand up. Amy?
I guess that what you just explained, I think answers part of it, but my other thought was, Heather, is when did you know the park was going to require these repairs? And if you knew before the inspection period expired, could you not have asked for an extension on the inspection because
that
of
would've been
those
great.
expectations of the park?
Yeah, we didn't know until after we'd released the contingencies, so I wonder if it would be the material fact if we wanted to push it, but hopefully it's going to be in better condition than they agreed to it. So yeah, that would be a good thought in the future. Yeah, it was done.
Yeah, some parks have, I've heard this about mobile home parks, that some have repair requirements and others don't. So, it'd be
Find out
something to
ahead of
check out
time.
the park. Yeah, in advance, yeah. Mari?
Yeah, would you want to get something in writing from the park too? These things have been completed, kind of like a receipt or something?
I know in this case, the park will not allow the transfer of the property until they sign off on it. So I'm assuming we're going to get something, or escrow is going to get something.
Yeah. Because it would be good to have in case, it came
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
Get you.
it sounds like a reasonable thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric?
Yeah, what's the remedy if when you do your final walkthrough inspection, there is something substantially different? Let's say the garage door has fallen off and all the mechanism is messed up and you go, hey, this is not okay. What's the remedy? It's not a contingency.
Well, one remedy would be just not to close, and let the seller push you through a demand to close escrow, a DCE, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, part of what happens there is, it's partly our skill in negotiating, that we go back to the listing agent and say, okay, this is not working here. The garage door stopped working, and it was when we looked at the house and the inspections and blah, blah, blah. So it needs to be fixed by the seller. And, part of it's that negotiation between the agents and then the principals to get that done. So you might postpone closing, you might write an agreement that commits the seller to do it after close of escrow. Worst case scenario, the seller says, no, I'm not doing anything. in fact, in Amy's transaction, it was an interesting thing because they learned kind of down the road that this property that the house was on was tended to be unstable when there was a lot of water on it. I don't know how better to express that. I'm not an engineer, but and actually when Amy went back into the house with the client and found that a deadbolt lock wasn't locking, and a vendor was there who had walked on the house or worked on the house, and this was after the heavy rain. He said, "Oh yeah, these properties shift around after the rain because the ground's unstable." And so it actually tweaked the house enough that the door lock wasn't locking anymore. So this was not, disclosed, it was something new discovered. And during the course of the cancellation, I mean, before the cancellation, Amy said, "Well, should I tell the agent that now?" And I said, "No,
My buyer.
yeah, get the cancellation done first, and then tell them, that they got problems." Yeah. Go ahead, Amy.
So actually, this all happened within the last 24 hours. We literally just canceled last night, and we went back for a final verification and just to kind of reassure my clients. And their daughter's boyfriend's a contractor, called under the house last night, and we found out that there's no plumbing under the master shower drain, and it was a brand new remodel. So at that point, we're out.
Yeah. And they didn't need to give a reason for the cancellation. They made it a mutual cancellation, and the buyer or the seller agreed, so that was all good. Patty, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I had a unique situation where I was in a contract, and during the final walkthrough, we noticed there was water coming from the condo above.
Mhm.
And they had said that it was from an aquarium lake, but it was actually a grow.
Oh, right. I remember that one.
Yeah, and so everybody just agreed to cancel because it was just too complicated. We had to get the city, had to get involved, and it was kind of complicated.
Yeah. So sometimes you do find things at the the verification of property condition, and even though it's not a contingency, you might work into a cancellation around that thing. Last thing I've got is our agent has run into properties that have CCRs in place put in by the developers, but there's no association. There's nobody enforcing the CCRs. That they're small. It's a small group of properties, and they're governed by CCRs. But they aren't big enough to have like an association and stuff like that. There's no dues. There's no public areas per se. It just has CCRs for some reasons about what you can do on the properties or not. So, and then the question becomes, I've advised our client, the buyer, to look at the city ordinances that might prohibit what they wanted to do, which was they wanted to park one of the big RVs in the side of the house. And the CCRs say no, but no one's enforcing them. So, okay, should they proceed on the basis that that's what they want to do? And our agent said, well, go check out and see if there's city ordinances that apply. Well, Vicky, we ran this by Vicky, and she writes the following: "Your advice is well intentioned, but not accurate. They do not need to research any city ordinances. The individual owners subject to the CCRs with no HOA can legally enforce the provisions themselves by filing legal actions in the courts, but they do not need to consult with their own. They need to consult with their own qualified California real estate attorney, the QURCA, as we call them." And Yeah, so they should know from the get-go that that's enforceable by under the CCNRs, even if there's no HOA. Okay. And that's all I have today. I took a fair amount of time. Heather, I don't know what you plan to cover on the tech side. Let me make you a co-host.
Can I ask one more question? I don't do a lot of the mobile homes and parks, and
Yeah,
we're already past this, but my client was, the only contingency that they had left was the park approval. And
right.
they were wondering if they could back out based on the, you know, that they hadn't gotten their park approval in a timely manner. They just hadn't finished doing that, and still, you know, think it was likely to get their deposit back. Just curious about that, because the park approval, you don't put a date, you know, but it is a contingency. So is it just as normal, all the other contingencies?
Yeah, that's in the mobile home addendum that it requires park approval?
The mobile, well, right now it's the mobile home, the actual purchase agreement, right?
Okay.
It'll eventually next
Yeah.
week.
Right. I don't know. I mean, if it's just a timing matter, I think it would extend everything until the park approval was done. It wouldn't be something you could cancel on. So, Amy, you have some thoughts there? Amy?
Oh, she went dark.
Amy,
Okay.
Amy froze up.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay, well, she has something. I was just curious because they were wondering, because the park was
I
not.
can't
doing-
hear you, Gary. Can you guys hear me okay?
Oh,
Okay.
I can hear you now. Mhm. No. So,
Okay, all right, well, I'll move over into.
Yeah, you
I
go.
was just going to mention to Heather up here.
we aren't, you're kind of frozen there, Amy. So why don't maybe reboot, log off and log back on?
Or put it into the chat. Thanks.
Yeah, or type it in the chat if you're coming. And Eric, you have a comment there?
Yeah, wouldn't park approval be covered under property investigations on any and all?
I'm not so familiar with the contract that, in fact, while Heather's starting her training, let me go look at the contract and see where the park approval is mentioned in what context. I'll get back to you.
Mentioned in a separate location on the contract.
Yeah, I think so.
And it says it is a contingency, but you know, often it takes weeks where your investigation. So when we released their investigation contingency, we said all except for park approval. So just keep that,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Okay, roll
All
with
right.
that.
Okay, well, I thought I would show everyone a little bit about Moxie Present today. I see a lot of people on the call that were in the Santa Rosa office this morning or in Sonoma office and doing the workshop. So this is not going to be new information for you guys, but definitely I think it's always good to see things multiple times. Hopefully you guys have gone into Moxie Press and taken a look at the great way you can create marketing stuff on Moxie Press. I really have been loving that you can go into, you know, your listing and there's automatically created videos. There's single property websites. They do what they call a walkthrough. I didn't think that one was great, but the video and that single property website, you can just get the link and post it on your social media, put it into the MLS, what have you, so that people can look at that really easily. Moxie Present is the CMAs. So let me share my screen with you. And share screen. If you haven't gone in and taken a look, all of the Moxie products that we have currently will have Engage soon and websites sometime in December. But you access everything through the greenhouse. So you go into greenhouse and go into tools and resources, and then you'll see MoxiWorks there. So you just click on that, and then you'll come up to this screen. Can everybody see this screen okay? You guys see got my huge picture? Okay, great. This is where you access both Present and Impress. So I'm going to pop over to Present. Present is a really nice way to create a very interactive CMA. When I first started looking into it, I thought, oh, this is going to be a pain. I'm going to have to go to the MLS and get all the comps and then bring it over. But you actually can search right in Present. It's got the MLS feed, and it has actually a very good search way to search. So if you're just starting a CMA, I'm not going to go through all this today because we don't have a ton of time, but you see up in the top right is the Create New button. You just click on that and go through the steps to create one. Let's see. Do you guys want me to walk through that, or?
No.
Just what? Okay, I'll just go to I've got a sample already created here. Oops, this is not what I wanted. Never mind. Here's the one that, okay. All right, so I'm gonna edit that. So this is, once you hit Create New, this is the screen that you get. It's really nice. You can add a photo to be the cover page, and you just have to put in a property address. To start the search, you just have to put in a property address and the bedroom and bath count. So I'm just going to pop in an address and go down and say bedroom, 2 bath, and you hit OK. And then at the very bottom is the continue button. This takes you to the search screen. So all you have to put in is the address, the bed bath count. There's a ton of other fields there, but I suggest starting fairly broad there with your search, and then you can narrow it down on this screen. So on this screen, you'll see the listings that are suggested as comps on the left and a map on the right. The map, you can zoom in or out. So for instance, with this listing, there's a ton on here. So I want to narrow it down a little. So you just click the plus button and it will zoom in on that map. And the listings on the left will be whatever is just showing on the map on the right. So if you're like, gosh, I know there's a better listing, you can drag the map, and then it'll show you more listings on the area that you now is available on the map. You can, uh-oh, somebody's got an emergency. You can also draw a specific area. So if you want to say, well, I only want listings, you can click on this draw, and then you can draw whatever neighborhood shape you want. And then it will only show you listings in that specific drawing. You can also exit out of that. You can also do a radius. So you click on the radius, click somewhere on the map, and then you just expand, just drag, and you can expand whatever the radius you want to be. And then it's going to search just in that radius. So I'm going to pull that out. When you use draw, it's really handy too. You can add multiple drawing locations. So for instance, if you know that this neighborhood and this neighborhood, right, are really good comps, but in the middle they're not, you can draw the 2 areas that you want to make sure are covered. From there, all the listings that come up, you can click right on details here, and up will pop that listing. So it'll have all the photos and all the information. So you can decide, you can click on the left there to include that listing, if that's one you're going to include. Sorry, I'm having to manage here, move our little photos around. There we go. Once you're done, click the top right, the check mark or the cross X at the top. Now, if you know that you're going to add anytime, if you're not on the other screen and you want to add this one, oh yeah, this one on Holland Drive, you just click on the photo and it's going to add those listings to that CMA. Now, if you have too many listings and you want to narrow it down a little bit, you can filter all of the listings that are popping up based on these top 3 here: price, bed, bath, and filters. Price, obviously, if you know that you only want to look at things in a certain price range, you can change the bed, bath count. And then right here, you click on filters and it gives you several other options. On the left is all the statuses. So if you only want to be looking at solds, you just uncheck actives or what have you. And then over on the right, if you want to restrict your search by, square footage or lot size, you can just come in here, lot size, I'm going to say 1/4 acre. And then you hit on the bottom right, apply, and it will use those filters now to narrow down the potential comps. So it really lets you do most of the same searching that you can do directly in the MLS. And in some ways, I don't know, I like the way the map moves around and you can really, narrow it down based on location really easily. I think in some ways more easily than in the MLS where you have to pick, a section of town or what have you. Let's see. Once you've chosen all of the listings that you want added to the CMA, I'm going to just click on a bunch to have them over there. You click on continue and you are going to get this screen. This screen is where you can see, you can do another look, right? You can say, okay, all these, oh gosh, I included one that's way out of price, or however you're going to analyze those. You can remove listings right here. You can also add adjustments right here. If you're like, oh, this one's got, the extra bedroom, maybe I'm going to adjust it down. You can do those sort of things. Over on the left, you can edit the remarks. So it's actually the marketing remarks. You can put your own comments in there. This is a great comp because of X, Y, or Z, or whatever you'd like to comment on. What I think is really valuable on this screen is you can adjust the order that these comps will show up in the CMA. So right now you can see up here, it says order by. So it's listed at highest to lowest. Well, I prefer to either have it be listed lowest to highest, if you want to do that, or you can do what they call custom set order. And then you can go in and just click on the left side once you get this little multi-arrow thing. Once you get that, you can click and then just drag and put it in whatever order you want. So whatever's at the top here is the first comp that's going to show up in the CMA. So it's really nice. I, often get the best 3 comps, right? If I'm going to be sitting down with a client listing out those best 3 comps, so those are the ones we're going to look at. That's how you would set that up. Let's see here. You can also, if there's another listing that you want to add that isn't there, maybe something you know about from the MLS, you just click here on add custom listing. So that is that. I'm going to skip ahead. There's a lot of different pages you can include here. But one thing I think is the coolest thing about this CMA program is you can add your own custom pages to it. So I'm going to click on add page and create new. And here, if you click on build page, you can create any page you want. And it allows you to include video. So I'm going to click on this solid one screen, I guess. I'm going to add that in. I'm going to click create. And then here you can see you can add text, an image, or a video. So I'm going to pop a video in here. I have to go grab it from somewhere. It has to be hosted somewhere. So, if you have it hosted, if you have a video of yourself on YouTube or somewhere, actually, oh gosh, I'm zipping all around here. Actually, let me see something. Once you've done it one time, which I did earlier today, you can add ones you've already added. How do we do that? Okay, it doesn't have it in there for me. All right, so let me see. Sorry, I'm just got to find the video link that I have. You guys don't need to see this. Share. Just give me a second. I'm gonna grab a video, email. You just need the link to your video. Okay. Share screen. There we go. All right, we're back to the blank page I've added to the CMA. I go to video, and then I'm just going to put in the link from the video that I have stored, you know, on YouTube or Vimeo or anywhere. And you pop that, you add that in, and then that is one of the pages of, look lovely there, one of the pages of the CMA. So my idea for this is, if you're going to email someone a CMA, maybe they, you know, that you don't even have a listing appointment, they just want, they're thinking, oh, what's our home maybe worth? You could include a little video, the second page of your CMA, of you saying, hey, I'm Heather, you know, and telling them a little bit about the CMA and who, you know, who you are and how you can help them decide if they should sell their home. So that one I think is very cool. And then once you've got all that, you've got to save it. I can't see it on my screen because of all this. Oh, here's save up on the top right. Video, description, and save. Oops. Well, sorry, I'm having trouble navigating here because of our pictures. There we go. Cancel. All right. So then once you've got that done, you can, why this isn't working, there we go. You can click right here and view your whole, the CMA that you just created. I suggest looking at it before you send it out, make sure there's no weird things, but you can edit a ton of this, and it's a pretty nice interactive CMA for your clients to utilize. It takes it just a minute to get it ready to roll. Oh, it is ready. So this is what your clients are going to be seeing. That's so funny. It has my incorrect middle initial. So I will have to fix that. Oh, you know what this is for? That's the client's name, that top one there. So that would be for so-and-so, right? Sally, sample Sally. But just take a quick peek here. Here's one of the pages that allows them, your client, to see all the comps you have. They can click in and see the particulars about the property and view all the photos. So it's really nice for someone if you know, you could sit down at a listing presentation and show that, and this is how you could scroll through and talk about comps and pricing, or you can email it to them if you're not going to sit down with them, and they can, you know, cruise through it all on their own. I hope you guys try using this. I really suggest you just go in, play with it some, and put in a, you know, try out a CMA and see how it looks and what you like. There's other pages there that Better Homes and Gardens has created, as well as Haley. They're going to be creating some particular wine country group pages you can include as well. Any questions or anything?
That's great, Heather. Thank you. I was meeting with someone, Rob has a question, but I'll just give my comment. I was meeting with someone yesterday, and they had a customized kind of CMA program too in their brokerage. But MoxiWorks is like the state of the art CMA. They kind of invented this thing, and it is really the best in the business. And so rather than use the one in the MLS, which everyone else uses, we get to use this one that's customized to us. And so I think it's a real advantage that we have this, and it'll give you a different look and feel in front of your clients than the other competitors. And your marketing assistant in your office can help you with this. Michaela's been very good at this. Thank you, Joe. And when you email it to them, Curtis asked, is it a link you're emailing them to, Heather? Looks like Heather froze up too. Let me go back to the, this is a manufacturing home purchase contract. And here's this residency application. So it's a whole separate contingency. And it says that within 5 days, the buyer shall make application. So it doesn't have an expiration date on when this approval should come in. So that's kind of what Heather was talking about. I think it would just extend this contingency until the approval is given. So if that means extending closing dates and so forth, it would. Okay, Rob, did you have a question? This might be freezing on my, oh, there you are, Rob. Murray, you have a question.
We're having some connection issues.
Okay. Murray, you had a question?
Your internet connection is unstable, just like my emotional connection.
Spinning wheels, spinning wheels, spinning wheels.
Patty, you got a
I
question?
got Rob here. What was your question, Rob?
Actually, it was a small comment for anyone who is using a MacBook with Moxie Presents. There are default pop-up blocker settings that prevent you from seeing other listings on the MLS. So if you have any problems seeing your listing, you have a MacBook, go into your settings and it's probably going to be your pop-up blocker.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, Mari?
Yeah, I was gonna say, wouldn't it make sense to put that park, review somewhere in the timeline? Because, usually a timeline is created as something that gets handed out to basically everybody. But that way it's noted so that you don't accidentally forget about it.
Yeah.
It looks like it was linked to 16A.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll check with Katie about whether that goes into the timelines or not, park approval.
Yeah, because it's something I think could get kind of lost in the
Yeah.
shuffle.
Okay, good idea. Okay, everybody, any questions before we adjourn? Are you saying goodbye, Heather, or because you're muted on Patty's thing? You're just saying goodbye. Oh, what do we got there?
Okay, there we go.
Oh, hey, Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got completely booted out, but Rob was going to tell everybody. So he's got a MacBook. And
Yeah, he did tell us.
Oh, he did say. Oh, okay. Okay. He wasn't sure if it went through. So
Yes,
the email comes up pretty nice. It is a link that they just click on and then they go to the whole presentation.
All right, Curtis, it comes in the form of a link. That's the answer. All right,
Yeah.
everybody, have a great week. Next week, we will have the company-wide sales and marketing meeting at 10 and training at 11. So we'll see you next week, if not before. Everybody be well. Bye.
Goodbye.
That's why I was on.